All right, so Mufasa, The Lion King, directed by Barry Jenkins. This is a prequel to The Lion King, mainly the live action remake. We put obviously live action in quotes. The live action remake from 2019, which I hated, and I don't like this movie either. Creatively, there's no reason for this movie to exist. It's not a good movie. It's pretty worthless other than for Disney to make money. So that's pretty much it. So in this, Mufasa, played by Aaron Pierre, we get to see his beginnings. He was not of nobility. He was just a cub with his parents. His parents, they're believed to be dead. He was separated from them, or got separated from them, and he ends up being saved by Taka, who will become Scar, played by Kelvin Harrison Jr. He is actually a prince, and he's meant to become king of his pride, but he's a coward, and so that's part of it. But they grow up together. They live as brothers. They're not actually blood related, and they end up getting attacked by these other lions, led by Kiros, played by Mads Mikkelsen. He's the lead lion, and they attack their pride and attack those lions, and they run away. They're sent away by Taka's father, the king. And so on the course of this journey, they meet Sarabi, they meet Rafiki, they meet Zazu, and they end up forming Pride Rock, and Mufasa ends up becoming the king that we know him to be. Like I said, I don't like this, but there's some good things here. I think the voice acting is pretty good, especially by Aaron Pierre and Kelvin Harris Jr. I think both of them are really good, especially Kelvin Harris Jr. Whenever he has to make his flip and become more like the Scar that we know him to be, he's still not Scar to me. He's still nothing, nowhere near as fantastic as Scar is in the original Lion King. But there is a transition for him to be more cunning, I guess, or at least more evil and against Mufasa. And I think he did a good job acting that out with his voice acting, even though it's not written well. It's not good, but he does a good job with it. And that goes for the rest of the cast too. And they did address certain criticisms I had of the live action remake for Lion King, where there definitely is more expression on their faces and not just them trying to make what is like a nature documentary and just have them do voiceover over it to tell the story of Lion King like they did in 2019. So there is an attempt to do that. And the environments and everything still look great. This movie should not exist. And I wasn't going to see this movie, and I was going to pretend like it didn't exist. Because in the original movie, it seems very obvious to me that Scar and Mufasa are related, right? That Scar is also his actual name. Yes, he has a scar in his eye. I get it. It's cartoon. So obviously that's the way things were. Certain lines of dialogue. Scar says, when it comes to brute strength, I got the shallow end of the gene pool. Now, he didn't say that in the live action remake, but we still have other lines. Everybody up to this point, I'm sure, believed that these two were blood related, but we need to change things so that we can have a story, so that we can make this movie. And this movie, the whole framing device of it is Simba and Nala. They have gone to have a kid, have a younger sibling for Kiara who's already there. And that's a difference from Lion King 2, where it was just Kiara. So I guess Kiara's going to have a younger sibling. I don't know how different the live action version of Lion King 2 is going to be, but whatever. That's the whole framing device. Does that seem like it should be in a theater, or does that seem like that could just be something on Disney Plus? It doesn't seem like it should be in a theater, but it shouldn't exist at all because it doesn't really fall in line with what has already come before it in the original. It commits the sin of prequels of feeling like it needs to explain everything. Certain things, all right, fine, the formation of Pride Rock, whatever, what's going on? But things like, how did Rafiki get his staff, his stick? Oh, there was a stampede. They caused a stampede to get away. And he's holding on to a branch on a tree, and the tree breaks off, and that's his stick. I don't give a fuck. I don't care. Scar. Why does Mufasa not call Scar Taka in the original movie or the remake? Oh, well, in this movie, he allows Scar to stay in the end when everything goes on. And he's like, but I can't call you by your name. I'm still going to let you stay here. I'm still going to give you shit when you don't come to see my son as his uncle. but I'm still gonna call you my brother too, but I can't call you by that name, right? And it's to explain why he didn't call him that in the original. So Scar says, "Hey, I have this scar on my eye," because of course he had to get the scar on his eye in this movie. So you could just call me Scar. Things like that. We have to have Scar become more like the Scar we know him to be, evil, cunning, things like that. So he feels betrayed by Mufasa based on a love triangle between him, Mufasa, and Sarabi, which is horrible. It's probably the worst way that you could have had that play out. The worst way. They have, I think, 2 conversations and then he decides he loves her. And then gets upset because Mufasa and Sarabi just happen to be getting closer and closer to each other. Who cares? The villain, Kyros, played by Mads Mikkelsen. Uh, Great actor, great performance. The character I kind of liked. He was menacing, but that's the thing. They give him the worst song in this whole movie. Most of the songs are just kind of forgettable. I can tell you what they were right now. The "I Always Wanted a Brother" between Taka and Mufasa. That one's at least catchy. That's probably the best song in this. But this Bye Bye song is easily the worst. I heard it before seeing the movie, and I'm thinking, oh, this is a silly villain. We're not supposed to take him seriously. But no, we are supposed to take him seriously. He's menacing. He's willing to kill pretty much any lion, even his own lions, if they fail him. He has this revenge that he wants against Mufasa and Taka based on something that happened earlier that they put barely any emphasis on. They barely developed. So when he says that he wants revenge for this thing, I was like, wait, that happened? But whatever. Clearly, we're supposed to take this villain seriously until the Bye Bye song comes up, where it's silly. He's like, bye bye. You're gonna go bye bye. Like, what? How does this fit with this character? It's like a whole nother character during that song. So he's intimidating up to that point, and then after that, it's like, well, we know you're silly. We know you turned your villain into a clown, a villain that you wanted to be menacing because you gave him that shitty ass song. It doesn't even make sense. It's mainly just Mufasa, Sarabi, Zazu, and Taka just walking to get to. I think they called it Malele. End up being Pride Rock, and avoiding these white lions that are coming after them. And that's pretty much it. Mufasa doesn't feel like Mufasa. Scar doesn't feel like Scar. Towards the end, a little bit more because of the character arc, but the villain arc, but not really. Sarabi basically is there. And there's a romance between her and Mufasa that, would be better if it wasn't part of a really shitty love triangle. This is just largely worthless. And I wasn't going to see this movie. I was not going to see it. It's the end of the year. It's probably going to make my worst list. I already made it. So I'm thinking, you know what? I could just pretend this movie doesn't exist. It doesn't make sense with anything that came before it. It feels completely pointless. Somebody could even say, oh, well, Rafiki's telling the story to Kiara during a storm, so maybe it's unreliable narrator. It's not, but if it was, that would make this movie even more pointless. And I wasn't going to see this, right? I've seen a lot of these live action remakes in the theater. I've hated them, made the video, ranting or whatever. And this was the one where I was going to put my foot down and be like, no. But my girlfriend wanted to see it. So she really wanted to see it. She was listening to the music on TikTok and everything. So I'm thinking, oh no, she's going to make me go see this. And she did. So we saw it. I did not like it at all. But I'm not as mad as I was with the 2019 remake. So I guess remaking a classic, remaking it in a really shitty way where you just basically make the same movie but way worse is more offensive to me than a worthless prequel that doesn't even make sense as a prequel, I guess. But I'm going to give this trash and not my lowest rating, which is what I gave the live action remake for Lion King. Because unlike that movie, the voice acting I think is pretty solid here. And an act of good faith, you did give the lions a little bit more emotion to make them actually be characters. So whatever. It's still a bad movie. It still shouldn't have been made, but it's still very obviously just greed. But I guess at least it's not that movie. That's the saving grace for this, for me at least. So yeah, that's Mufasa, the Lion King. Trash, subscribe, and that's it.